You probably have heard about the terms UI, UX, and product design. These are terms that people sometimes confuse and use interchangeably. In this video, I will go about what are they and who are the people that usually fulfill these roles. Let's get to it. And while you're getting in, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. So you probably have heard about the terms UI, user interface, UX, user experience, and product design. These are terms that are obviously very connected to each other, but sometimes people might get confused of what they mean. So now let's go through them and make sure that we clarify what are these concepts and you understand who are the people that usually are fulfilling these roles. Product design usually encompasses a holistic approach to understanding what is the life cycle of the product from the very inception all the way to the launch and beyond the launch. So this means that when you are in the very beginning, when you are ideating, you have to understand your user needs, what are the market trends, what are the industries, what are the personas that you are going to be serving with the products that you're creating. And of course, they also had to take into account what is the business value, what are the business goals, and how you are going to deliver value to your customers. Product design is going to have different areas. The first one being strategy. Strategy is going to encompass things like vision, goals, and the user personas that you are going to be serving with your products. Research, they're going to conduct different interviews, different research that is going to help them understand the user needs and their behaviors and motivations. They're also going to work in the design and create mock-ups, prototypes, wireframes to create the visuals for the product. They will also work in the development and they will collaborate closely with engineers to make those visions, those goals, those visualizations that they have created for the product into a reality that then the users can take advantage of. They will also do testing and validation of the concepts and they will work sometimes on their own, sometimes with customers to validate that the concepts actually are serving the needs of the customers or that they are working in the way that they specify them. And then they, of course, will be part of the launch and the iteration on the product. Launch is never the end of the product, or usually it's not the end of the product. In most of the cases, most of the products are going to be evolving over time. This is a key point for the designers to actually continuously work with the customers to understand better how they're behaving, how they are interacting with the product, and how the product can be improved in the future. And in many cases, product designers are also going to be working in service design, meaning they are going to look into what is the journey of the user from the beginning all the way to the end and how they interact potentially not just with the product, but also look into how they are going to discover the product, how they are going to consider the product, potentially how they are going to purchase, use it, even promote it in the future. If you're interested in what service design is, I have a video about it. I will link it up here. Usually this role is fulfilled by a person usually called product designers. There are product designers out there, you might have heard of them, but might not be the most common of these roles. The next one is user experience. When you think about the design of user experience, usually you are talking more about the experience that the user has when using the actual product. And here, many times, the people that are working with user experience are going to make sure that the experience of the users with the product are going to be intuitive, easy, and enjoyable, even efficient for those users. And many times you will hear people that work in this area talking about minimum lovable product, not minimum viable products. So an NLP instead of an MVP. The areas that people working in user experience are going to be the next ones. First, usability, making sure that your product is easy, intuitive, and even efficient for those users to use. Can the users complete the tasks that they want to accomplish with their products? The next one are going to be user journeys, how the users interact with your product from beginning to the end. User journeys are sometimes more theoretical than they are actual user journeys. Sometimes you can get really surprised when you try to understand how users behave or use your products. But there's going to be the theoretical user journeys that you want to promote, that you want to help your users finding the value in using your product or when using your product. Information architecture is going to be quite an important topic, helping the users understand how the information is organized and presented to them. And finally, a topic that has been very important recently is accessibility, something that is very much taken into account when you're thinking about people that are having some kind of problems with their eyesight that they cannot maybe recognize different colors. You have to make sure that your product is something that is intuitive for them to use, or at least easy for them to use, and it's not something confusing where they're not going to potentially be able not to read text because the contrasting is not there. There's going to be many aspects to accessibility. I was just putting one example of one of the topics that is going to be relevant there. For this role, usually you're going to have people like UX designers that are going to be working typically very close to the development teams. Finally, you have UI or user interface. Here, when you're talking about UI and user interface, you are usually talking about your the windows or the displays that you have, screens that you have for your product, and of course all the components that are within them. It can be text, it can be visuals, icons, controls, and so on, and also the branding colors that you might want to adopt because whatever is the brand that you have in your company. Key considerations here is going to have things like a design system where you want to define what are all the components, all the different type of iconography, fonts, colors that you are going to be using across your products or different designs, and make sure that everybody is using the same components all the time, so the visuals of your product are consistent. You also want to look into things like visual hierarchy, how all your components in your displays are going to be organized. Consistency is going to be very important because what you want to have with your user interface is that it's consistent, so it's easier to understand. If every time that I open a window is laid out, or a display or screen is laid out in a different way, this is going to be confusing for many of your customers. So consistency is key. Also aesthetics. How do I make an appealing design that is going to be not only easier to use, but potentially also nice to see? You can see this in many different applications. I don't want to maybe necessarily complain too much about Microsoft Teams, but the visuals maybe are not the greatest in my opinion. And this is probably a personal thing. I like more the visuals, for example, of Slack. And then there's responsiveness, something that is critical and something that is a must-have. So you want to have that your UI is really responsive to the different interactions that the user has with it. You don't want that they have to be waiting too long, that there are long delays, and you want basically that your displays, that your user interfaces are responsive. Many times when you think about the user interface, who is going to be responsible for working on it and implementing it, usually is going to be somebody that is going to be something like a front-end engineer. Although you could argue that the planning phase many times is going to come from somebody like a UX designer, potentially even a product designer. So often the roles of the people that fulfill these different disciplines, product design, user experience, and user interface, are going to overlap. And people that are doing product design can do user experience. People that can do user experience sometimes can also implement user interfaces. So the work is going to be something that really has to be aligned, that they have to collaborate, no matter if it's just one person or 3 people or 10 people or even more in the team that are working in these different aspects of the designs of your products. But being able to understand these concepts is going to help you better plan your products, better plan the overall design of your the experiences that your customers are having with your products, and maybe not just focusing only on the user interface and the controls and so on. So if you want to design successful products and make sure that your designs are on point and probably better than what your competitors are doing, these concepts are something that you should master. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. I do weekly videos on product management, product developments, and software products in general. I will see you in the next one, and remember, stay safe.